Hi everyone, Dr. Bruce here. In this video, I wanted to go over some of the structures of the middle and inner ear. So the outer ear consists of the pinna, which is the part that looks like your ear, and then the external auditory meatus or canal, the sort of the channel that brings the sound into this structure called the tympanic membrane, or you might remember this as the eardrum. But the tympanic membrane. So the tympanic membrane then connects to the small bones called auditory ossicles. These are the malleus, incus, and stapes. And so the purpose of these bones is to actually transmit those vibrations from the tympanic membrane to the inner ear. So they transmit the vibrations to the inner ear. Now, there's this process called the tympanic reflex, which is a protective mechanism. So let's say you go to a concert and you listen to very loud music, and then you walk out of the concert and you notice that your ears are ringing. That's called tinnitus. What happens is there are two muscles here, the tensor tympani and stapedius muscles, that pull on these bones and dampen those vibrations, keep those vibrations from going into the inner ear. So your hearing might be a little bit off until that reflex wears off. All right, so we have the malleus, incus, and stapes, and then the stapes connects to what's called the oval window, which is where the inner ear begins. So this is all middle ear. Another structure in the middle ear would be the eustachian tube, and that connects us with the upper cavity, which helps to equalize the pressure in the ear. All right, so this is the inner ear then. This whole green section is the inner ear that consists of three parts. There's the middle portion called the vestibule. There are the semicircular canals, and then there's the cochlea that looks somewhat like a snail shell. The vestibule and the semicircular canals, their function has to do with equilibrium. So static equilibrium is processed in the vestibule. There are two structures in there called the utricle and saccule. And in those structures, you have what's called a macula, which is a membrane that contains these little otoliths, little stone-like structures that sit on top of the membrane. So it senses changes in position. So let's say you're laying down and you sit up, right? The otoliths, the little stones, pull on the membrane and they bend these little hair cells called stereocilia, and that gets transmitted to the brain and is interpreted as changes in position. So that all occurs in the vestibule. The semicircular canals, then, there are three semicircular canals. Each one is oriented at a right angle to the other one. So they have to do with changes in motion. So that's called dynamic equilibrium. So at the base of every semicircular canal is a bulge called an ampulla. There's a little structure in there called the cupula, and fluid moves around there. So the semicircular canals are full of fluid. When the fluid moves over the cupula, it bends it, and connected to the cupula are again hair cells or stereocilia. The bending of the hair cells are then transmitted to cranial nerve 8, the vestibulocochlear nerve, and interpreted by the brain as changes in movement. So semicircular canals have to do with changes in movement, where the vestibule has to do with changes in position or static equilibrium. All right. Lastly, we have the cochlea. That's where hearing is produced. And so there are fluid-filled chambers in the cochlea. And then there's an organ called the organ of Corti, which consists of two membranes. One membrane, there's a basilar membrane and the tectorial membrane. The basilar membrane is fixed, but the tectorial membrane can move. So the vibrations then are brought to the inner ear via, the stapes is moving in and out. The vibrations travel through the cochlea and cause that tectorial membrane to move. Between the basilar and tectorial membrane are these stereocilia again, once again, hair cells, and it's the bending of the hair cells that are transmitted via cranial nerve 8 again, vestibulocochlear nerve, to the temporal lobe of the brain and interpreted as sound. All right, the only other structure that actually is not labeled on here, because it's actually not on here, but it should be, is the round window, and that's underneath here. The round window actually helps to, balance out the pressure that's created by the stapes moving in and out. All right, so hopefully this helps with your understanding of inner and middle ear anatomy and how the ear works, and we'll see you next time.